Copyright 2014, Math, Diagnostics, and Intervention, all rights reserved. We're going to take a look at the division of signed numbers, and what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at division of signed numbers in a way that should be familiar to you. Let's think about the 12 divided by 3 equals 4. And we can turn this into a multiplication problem, or we can consider it as the multiplication problem. 12 is equal to 4 times 3. So inside of every division problem, we can figure out the related multiplication problem by taking what we are dividing by and making that the multiplication of the answer to the division problem. So let's start taking a look at what happens when we have signed numbers in our division using the same process. Let's consider what happens when we have negative 8 divided by positive 4. And let's say we don't know what that number is going to be equal to, what that division is going to be equal to, so we'll give it a variable n. Turning this into a multiplication problem, we would get negative 8 equals n times 4, or 4 times n. And as we learned in our multiplication video for signed numbers, if the result of my multiplication is negative, one of these factors has to be positive and the other one has to be negative. Well, since 4 is positive, n has to be negative, and n must be equal to negative 2. So if I have a negative divided by a positive, the result will be a negative. Now let's take a look at what happens if we go the other way around. Let's suppose I have 24 and I'm going to divide that by negative 3. Once again, let's say we don't know what that value is going to be, and we'll give it the variable n. And we're going to turn that into our multiplication problem by saying that 24 is equal to n times negative 3, or negative 3 times n. So I have a multiplication problem here that is positive, and in order for the result of a multiplication problem to be positive, both of my factors have to have the same sign. So n must be negative. So 24 divided by negative 3 must equal negative 8. So a positive divided by a negative is a negative. Now let's take a look at what happens if both numbers in our division problem are negative. Let's suppose we have negative 15, and we're going to divide that by negative 3. And we're going to set that to a variable n again, and we're going to turn our division problem into a multiplication problem. So negative 15 is equal to n times negative 3, or negative 3 times n. I have the result of a multiplication that is negative. Therefore, one of my factors has to be positive and the other one must be negative. Therefore, n must be positive. So negative 15 divided by negative 3 is positive 5. So a negative divided by a negative is equal to a positive. Now that looks kind of confusing, but it's not so bad as long as you remember your rules for multiplication, because here's what's really going on. If you remember that a positive times a positive is equal to a positive divided by a positive is also a positive. When we had a positive times a negative, the signs are different, so the result of my multiplication is negative. If I have a positive divided by a negative, that was also negative. If I have a negative times a positive, that's negative. If I have a negative divided by a positive, that's also a negative. And a negative times a negative is equal to a positive, and a negative divided by a negative is also a positive. So the rules for the sign of a division problem are the same as the rules for multiplication problems. When we have two positives, positive times a positive is a positive, positive divided by a positive is a positive. When we have a positive times a negative is a negative, positive divided by a negative is a negative. Negative times a positive is a negative, negative divided by a positive is a negative, and a negative times a negative is a positive, and a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So the rules are the same. In multiplication, when the signs are the same, the result is positive, and when the signs are different, the result is negative. Positive times a positive is a positive, negative times a negative is a positive. Same thing with division. When we have a positive divided by a positive, the signs are the same, the result is positive. We have a negative divided by a negative, the signs are the same, the result is positive. When we have a positive times a negative, the signs are different, the result is negative. Same thing in division. When the signs are different, the end result of our division problem is negative. So this allows us to do several different problems. Let's take a look at negative 72 divided by 8. Let's take a look at negative 42 divided by negative 6. Let's take a look at 18 divided by 3. And let's take a look at 24 divided by negative 2. 72 divided by 8 is 9. The signs are different. The result will be negative 9. Negative 42 divided by negative 7. The signs in my division problem are the same. So just like with multiplication, when the signs are the same, the result is positive. Negative 42 divided by negative 6 will be 7. 18 divided by 3, that's our old friend, just regular old division. The signs are the same. The result will be positive 6. And 24 divided by negative 2, the signs are different. Therefore, the result will be negative. And 24 divided by 2 is 12. So as long as you remember the rules for multiplication, and remember that the rules for division follow the same exact pattern as the rules for multiplication, you'll have no trouble dividing signed numbers. Good luck.